Okay.
Pitch presentations for young companies. That's something that I help with.
Well, yeah. So this is Haiku Deck, and it's not. Now that I'm bragging on it, it's not. There we go. Okay. So Haiku Deck is a very, very agile piece of software that allows you to build a really pretty slide deck super fast. I had about, I think, 8 slides with pictures to this in the few minutes that I sat down at my computer. Yeah.
Gosh.
The second thing I'm using is Chrome extension. If you're not using Chrome, you should take a small tack hammer, hit yourself in the head with it, then start using Chrome. Because Chrome, number one, like 80% of the world uses Chrome now. But more importantly than that, which is why everybody uses it, the extensions are just powerful. They're just incredible. So this is a free extension called Screencastify, and it allows me to record what's going on my desktop, on my browser. So it records things. There's a lot of choices in it, but I'm recording this as we're talking about it, okay? So it's very cool piece of software. So 5 steps of the sale and why your website doesn't work. This was my original presentation that kind of started me on the track that where I am now about 4 years ago. The first step is greeting. So the 5 steps of the sale, the point of it is not that there are only 5 steps of the sale, but rather that no matter if you have 15, 5, 7, 95 steps to your sales process, these 5 steps are going to be there. Okay? So the first step is greeting. This is, if there's any sales process that has a step that's earlier than this, please let me know. I don't think there is one. But greeting is the first handshake. It's low pressure. It's the first time people are going to come into contact with your web presence. We're going to be talking about this all from an online standpoint, even though this all applies offline as well. There's almost none of this that will not work for you in the offline world, but we're concentrating online, okay? So first time people come into contact with your web presence, these people do not know you. That's the important part of this, and it's very critical to understand. So these are people coming from search, they're coming from social media, maybe a campaign that you did, maybe boosted posts, something like that, maybe a paid search. They're coming from some place online and finding you, okay? So it's very important that it be very clear. You see how this is not clear. This is the way most homepages look to visitors. People try to cram everything on because they're like, this might be the only page they look at, so I need to put everything on there. And that's a gigantic mistake, okay? So it's got to be very clear. Low pressure, low intensity, very clear. 2 is rapport building and investigation. Rapport building and investigation. Many sales processes separate these 2 steps. I always combine them, and I'll tell you why. You can build rapport all day long and never get closer to a sales. You can have a very good friend, you know, somebody that knows, likes, and trusts you, but if you have not done investigation combined with your rapport building, then you could be talking to somebody who's not your ideal client. So we combine those 2 steps into one. The reason I put the FBI picture up here is because it's an entire organization filled with hundreds of thousands of people, all dedicated to the idea of investigating and learning more about people. You know, you all remember, well, some of us are younger than me, but I remember when I was a kid, when you first started talking about psychological profiles, you know, they could tell this guy's a 35-year-old white male, you know, he eats Wheaties in the morning and he lives with his mom. How they know all that stuff? They rest the guy, he's a 35-year-old white male, lives with his mom, eats Wheaties in the morning. They reverse engineer what their ideal person looks like, right? And so, of course, you're not looking for a serial killer. Maybe some of you are, I don't know what you sell. But assuming you're not looking for a serial killer, then your ideal client, like she was talking about, is called persona building, or personas. And you're essentially doing a 3D cardboard cutout of your ideal client, and you want the idea is to clone them 1,000 times. If you clone the perfect buyer for you 1,000 times, what would that look like? That's the kind of thinking you want to take into rapport building investigation. So you should consider it your job to build a case file on any client you've ever had. A really easy way to do this is to go through your list of testimonials and reverse engineer that into copy. That's a really super easy thing to do because testimonials tell the story of your buying process. Like you talked about, 81 homes, sold this and that, I took these homes over. They were managed by other brokers, and then when I took them over, we sold it. That's an amazing story. That's a separating story. That separates you from the pack, both in concept and claim. I've heard. I was in real estate 20 years ago. I've never heard anybody say that. So that's an interesting idea. Okay. Presentation. If any of you were comic book fans, you remember this advertisement. And the reason I use it for this is because presentation is the first time you pull out your shiny object. I call it your shiny object because your shiny object is the thing that's going to solve your customer's problem. Now, before you ever started this, you need to do the hard work of getting super medieval on your value proposition, your core value proposition of your business. Okay? So your core value proposition, then your core three products or services. Okay? Each one of those is going to have its own sales process. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But as you walk through the process with your client, then this is more of an offline concept, but I'll marry this up to online in just a second. But you've talked to them, you said, Josh, I'm hearing what you're saying, and if I understand you correctly, I think this might be a fit for you. Other people that have done business with me, like you, have bought this before, and it worked very well for them, because it solves these problems. Okay? That's presentation. But you don't pull that out until then. You don't present on the homepage, right? You present on an individual page that's just about that thing, okay? So that's a content path, that's a pathway for your client to go through. Now, what happens in online is people go through greeting, rapport building, investigation, right presentation, all from the search page. So if your SEO is set up correctly, all your traffic is not going to be going to your homepage. It should be going to your deep pages that are about these individual things. And if you're blogging, which you should be, they should be going to your blog posts. Okay? So when they go to those, they've already self-identified, so that takes it through greetings and rapport building investigation. And then they jump to identifying a product or service that meets their need, and they've chosen that. Now, what you have to be super careful of is not allowing the customer to dictate that process. So on a page, you still need to have testimonials, which is social proof, which goes back to rapport building and greeting. So testimonials on a page, you don't want to have just a single testimonials page. You want to have testimonials built throughout your website. So what they do is they say, other people like me and use this product, right? So that's some rapport building, investigation. Because if I go to a page and it's like, I see all these testimonials and nobody's like me, then I made the wrong choice, right? But if I verify, if I affirm that I have made the right choice through reading testimonials, that makes me feel good, right? So make sure you have the previous 3 steps on every page. So a little bit of greeting, a little bit of who we are, the ability to go and learn more about us if they want to, because that's a verification, investigation that I've made the right choice, right? Makes me feel good, makes me feel comfortable. So demonstration, this is really important because most people skip it. People go presentation, they jam some demonstration in there, and they think that's good. It's not. You need to take people carefully through presentation. This might be the solution to your problem. Here's some stories about how it worked for other people. Here's some stories about how it might work for you. Okay? That's demonstration. You're getting granular about how this is going to solve the problem in your life. Okay? Yes. If you have to explain it more than once at this point, you're doing it wrong. And what I mean by that is, by the time somebody gets to your demonstration, they should know exactly why they think they are a fit for you and you're a fit for them. They should already know all this stuff by the time they get there. So if by that point, if the customer is not able to readily grasp what you're saying, then you're doing something wrong. You either haven't done enough work in step 2, 3, or your language is not clear enough. So if you have language in your site that is super industry specific, industry jargon, that can be a problem. Okay? So a really easy thing to do is just vet the site with people that are your ideal client. Go look. And the way you want to set it up is always say, look, I know I'm missing something here. I'm trying to get this figured out. I feel like there's probably problems here, but I'm too close to it. Will you please read this for me and tell me anything you find? And what that does is sets people up not to tell you what they think you want to hear. Because if you just ask people, especially because you're going to vet it with your friends probably, or at least clients or something like that, people that know you, they want to help you. They want to like be affirming. So if you just go, hey, please look at my site and tell me what you think, they're going to say, hey, it's great, it's wonderful, really good. But if you set that expectation differently, that I'm trying to find problems with it, people are going to be more likely to help you out and give you really good feedback. The close, it's the least work. If you've done your job on step 1, 2, 3, and 4, closing's easy because by the time you finish demonstration, people are either saying they're either saying yes, how can I buy, when can I buy, or they're starting to give you excuses why they can't buy because they lied to you about having budget, or they're saying hardcore, this is not for me. But they should have, if you're doing your investigation work right, they should have jumped out of your funnel a long time ago. But again, with online, people jump right to step 3 and 4 very quickly. But your language should be clear enough to kick out anybody that doesn't belong there. Okay? So let's get into content. So understanding that we have step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Really on step 5, there's not a lot of content for that. Really, you just ask people to sell. Step 5 is really all about actionable calls to action. So easy to find buttons that help me either set an appointment, make a call to make a sale. That's very important on mobile. All your phone numbers should be click to call on mobile. That's very, very important. That'll cause you to fail Google's mobile friendly test. And if you fail the mobile friendly test, all your mobile rankings go away. So you can have all your rankings on desktop, but Google has now separated desktop and mobile. So your desktop, you can have all your rankings in the top 5. And if you fail the mobile friendly test, if you go to mobile, you're non-existent. You're completely gone. So it's very important that not only you be mobile friendly, but to make sure that your phone numbers are click to call. Okay, so we're going to go through some tactical tools that implement and how you build content, how you plan it. Pardon me. For greeting, for core building investigation, presentation, and demonstration. Okay? So first is blogging. That's the big scary monster because everybody's afraid of it. Nobody likes to do it, but they all know they need to do it. How do you blog? Ugh. So I'm going to tell you a couple of really easy ways to blog. Okay? The first is, like I said, testimonials. Take a testimonial, talk to your client. Okay, so if Josh is my client and he gives me a recommendation on LinkedIn, first of all, you should do that. You should use LinkedIn's recommendation engine because of 2 things. Number one, it's very prominent on LinkedIn. So I've had people call me just to tell me they like my recommendation. So understand that people see that. They want to go down and see what other people are like and how they like working with me. Okay? So that's number one. Number two, you can ask for an edit of the recommendation. You can't do that with any other testimonial like Yelp or anybody like that. So I say, Josh, can you give me a recommendation about A, B, C? You write it for me. You got A in there too, you need B and C. I can send that back and go, hey, can you get B and C in there? Now that's done. Now I can take that, I can put it on my website. I can put it in a blog post. Today's story day. Once a month I do story day. I'm going to tell you about my customer Josh. Josh is blah, blah, blah. He does blah, blah, blah. And he does, this is how he does it. He met me and he asked me for the ABC. I did D, E, F, and he was happy because he got a child. Because he laughed with her. So, you've already got 200 words there easy. And that's if you don't get it.
Do you need a blog?
Huh?
You need a blog on your own personal website?
Do I?
No, anybody. You're saying each one of us needs a blog on their website?
Yeah.
That's where I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm telling, because everybody has that problem. Everybody goes blog, and it's just like this big, huge Death Star.
The hard part is you're writing about yourself and your company.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm telling you how to build a blog post.
Okay.
So you have a customer who's used to for a
So
long
you
time.
go out and just
You get a testimonial.
Okay.
You put it on the
I mean,
page.
people can do testimonials just for the sake of doing a testimonial.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you're gonna have a hard time. I mean, you can do that.
I mean, I know, I'm sure that's being done.
Fake reviews.
Yeah.
Sure, but when they find out about it, you get like a nuclear bomb set off your own marketing. I mean, Google will sandbox you for it. Yelp will completely like this.
So like I've got a customer in Australia that buys product from me, and I send an email to validate, quality of products and stuff like that. It's something you can block out.
Sure. Well, that's the beginning. That's the first step. So it's quality of the product, but it's also you reverse engineer it. Approach it from your ideal customer standpoint. How are they behaving? How are they thinking before they ever come to you? What are they afraid of? What are the horror stories out there? And you want to create testimonials that speak against those. I use other suppliers, they did this and this, I wasted my time, I wasted my money, they weren't on time, all this stuff, right? This guy, Josh, I've been using Josh for how many years? The best thing to do is use your oldest customers because it's very strong. Like what he said, 81 houses. That's a lot of houses. Sure. That's not, I sold 5 houses this year that other brokers had. 81 houses is a lot of houses. So if somebody, I've been working with Josh for 20 years, and here's why, maybe, okay, that's the beginning point. So then you put that on a blog post, and but you tell a pre-story. Today I'm going to tell you about ABC gas company in Australia. He's been using me for this long, he came to me with this problem, and I started shipping and blah, 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 you tell the story. Testimony right in the middle of the day, right? And then you talk.
I mean, how do you get that information? You just ask your customer to email it to you? Or?
Well, LinkedIn is best.
Oh, you need to.
LinkedIn is best.
So you have them posted on your LinkedIn.
But you can have them email it to you, and that's the lowest form of testimony.
Okay, that's the part I was.
Yeah.
So the LinkedIn is the bridge on this.
I'm your LinkedIn request.
Right.
So
Yeah, I got to dig in
you
there.
just go in there and say, contact with, when the next is, what's the testimonial, if they're moving in, how it's all.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole engine there for it.
Yeah.
So that's-
If they find there's something, they're gonna respond to it.
Yeah, that's one way to blog. Okay. Another, were you going to ask a
I was
question?
just gonna say on the line of testimonials. I mean, I've received those in the past too. Like friends of mine saying, "Hey, can you give me testimonials?" I just don't have time for that. But one thing that you can do also to focus, I know on the iPhone they have it's like $10 or something like that, and after you can record a call. And what I'm actually about to do later today for my client is actually I finally got her to give me a list of her clients that I could call.
You can find what?
I finally got a list of 2 of her 4 or 5 clients that I can actually call.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna basically call them and see if I can record the call, or if I see them in person, just say, "Hey, I really want to get some information. I am third party. Do you mind if I record this so that I can record it later?" And I say, you can also say, "Hey, listen, I'd really like to get some feedback so that we can improve as well. But I'd like to have the service and testimony potential for our website too. So do you mind if I record our conversation so I can go back later and make sure that I heard you correctly?" And then typically what you can do from that is, it's for me as somebody who is, you're interviewing for a testimonial. All it takes for me is to just talk to you for 10 minutes. I know that you're not going to be like following up and all this stuff. And one thing that you can offer is, once I type out your testimonial, I can run it by you for a result or improvement. But in my experience, trying to find the ways that will cut the time down the most for them.
Every client base is different. For me, I've just found that doing it through LinkedIn is so much easier because I don't have to ask them for time,
Yeah.
meet for lunch or something like that.
Yeah.
Because then they're looking at a 2-hour block out.
Yeah.
So
Where
LinkedIn
10
is,
minutes.
that's also Google will verify it.
Google doesn't really have anything to do with LinkedIn.
No, then how do they verify a counterfeit?
Well, Google has its own testimonial.
Right. So
Yeah.
Google that start buying from you on your site, is what I'm saying.
No, it's on your Google mobile page or places, or whatever they're calling it now. They change it every 6 months. You have a business page. That page has a review, but you have nothing to do with it.
The reviews are within their budget.
Your customers.
People are buying off your website.
No, they buy from you personally. It doesn't matter. Wherever they buy, it doesn't matter. That's
How
just
do they get the information?
what?
How do they get the information?
What is it?
To rate you.
They bought from you.
No, I meant Google, how do they get to your customers? You got people walking in buying them.
Google's not soliciting you.
Okay.
Google, yeah, it's a pure, that's what I mean. In Google, you have the least control. Well, Yelp probably you still have not sure of control, but Google, you probably have the least control of any review.
I mean, how do they generate a review? I don't understand where they get their information.
Well, the customer puts it in. The customer is, if I bought from you, I would go, now one of the things you can do, I suggest this to all my customers, is you should have all your customers on email list, and you should continually ask for reviews. You should individually ask for it, but every 3 months, sit down one, hey, if you haven't reviewed us lately, please do me a favor and just go tell us how the experience was.
Okay.
Do not ask for only good reviews. So Google finds out you're doing that. And especially don't incentivize good reviews, because that'll get your sandbox. But so customers are either responding to your request for review, or they are just going and doing it voluntarily themselves. It's one of the two.
But if you don't ask them, they're unlikely to go and
Right.
make a good one,
Right.
because if they're unhappy, they'll definitely.
Yes.
If they are happy, you'll have to nudge them.
Yes. It's the same rule.
I just don't deal with it, I've dealt commercially so long.
Sure.
So that's-
Exactly.
That's,
The nice thing is commercial people, they're more professional, and so they're much more likely to give you a review.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's the exact result that I get on LinkedIn, is that most of the people on there are very corporate oriented type people. They're much more likely to want to do recognition or
that's what I'm saying, most of the people that are on there, I've seen enforcements,
Endorsements are different.
Yeah.
The endorsements are split in buckets.
That's
So,
absolutely
yeah.
That's
So
what
reviews are much more effective. But I do want to let's get back to the blogging. And obviously, if you've got any questions, write them down. You can email them to me. I'm happy to answer them. Blogging with a review, you're telling that story. So if you think about each customer, especially for real estate, these people came to me, they had this, they had these kids, they were this school district, and that resonates so much, and no realtors do it. Like zero. The number is so small. We have over, I think the last count was 11,000 realtors in Austin. The number of people who have active blogs might be less than 100. And most of them aren't doing it very well. Okay? So you tell that story, tell the story of your customers. Really, all marketing should be centered around telling the story of your customers. Because I'm a potential customer, I want to read about other people like me who've dealt with you, who've got the same solution that I wanted, right? That's what social proof is, and that's the power behind Amazon and their review. They've built an entire business on reviews. Okay? So the second way that you can blog really easily is what I call the 5 points. Just your brain processes 5 really easy. Okay? It's an odd number. I believe, I've never heard evidence to say yay or nay on this, but my personal belief in it is every odd number has a beginning, middle, and end, where even numbers don't. So I believe that's why your brain processes it easy. So if I ask you, give me a blog title, your brain probably freaks out. But if I ask you, what are your top 3 products or services? You probably tell me that pretty easily. So if you write down one, great, tell me 5 things about it. Well, it's this, and it's this, and it's this, and it's this, and it's this. Great, tell me 5 things about each one of those things. And before you know it, you got 500 words. It's the easiest way to blog about anything, really. And you don't have to use 5 points in the blog post. You just write those 5 things down and then separate your paragraphs that way so that all your blog posts are 5 of this. But I will tell you, there's a reason they call it a listicle, a list article, listicle. There's a reason these are so popular because people love them. It processes in your brain. It's getting a little worn out. It's very interesting to me because if it ever wears out, then what will replace it? Because the list article works really, really well. 17 reasons you shouldn't like Justin Bieber, whatever it is. Well, top 10 is kind of dead. They don't really use 10 anymore.
Well, of course.
It's odd, it's opposite. So 7 things about, Donald Trump that you didn't know about his hair, something like that, And that makes you all want to read that. Even in your own mind. I mean, I said it, I made it up, and I kind of want to read the article. All right. You have to be consistent with blogging. You have to be intentional about it, and you have to be creative. Okay? So blogging is rarely, or should rarely, be about overarching ideas. They should be about very specific things. So if you are a plumber, 17 horror stories, plumbing horror stories that you can avoid, something like that.
So that's where the granular part comes in.
Yeah. So rather than plumbing is good.
Specifically avoid this.
Right. So rather than plumbing is good, and you should have a plumber, and I'm a plumber, you should hire me. That's essentially like your overview, like your homepage reading. So all reasons, and you get it. That's a service business, so you get into should you have maintenance? What maintenance can you do that prevents preventative maintenance that prevents big forest fire problem, stuff like that. But obviously every vertical is going to be much different. Josh is in a unique situation because it's a parts business, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
And so that's a different conversation. Because the customer,
Who reads this stuff?
huh?
Who reads this blog?
Well, so there's two parts to
It's so
blogging.
taxing.
There's two parts of to blogging. One is who reads it, which admittedly is few.
That's what I was going to say.
Unless you get in, unless you're a really interesting writer and you might come to the air gas parts business from a very funny, unique way, like you build stick figures out of them or something like that. People probably aren't going to read it. But here's the thing: ranking, indexing papers.
So it has something to do with the word sets you up as far as getting noticed. Blogging notice.
Well, it's about preponderance of evidence. So if you know the difference between civil trials and criminal trials is shadow of doubt of guilt. That is, he's not convicted if there's any doubt, right? Civil trials are about preponderance of evidence. It's a different conversation. That's the way you should look at it with ranking. Because what Google looks at is what is this site about? What are these people talking about? And if you're very consistent and you're very intentional, so that your subjects are very tightly defined. So
Right. You got to be proactive to get it.
you make that site very, very relevant on these topics. And most likely nobody else in your industry is doing it.
No, that's why I'm here.
Yeah. So that's 2 ways to blog that are really easy. Tell the customer stories in 5 points. Blogging is great for rapport building. So I think probably something, you still, and forgive me if I'm remembering this wrong, but do you still drive around a lot? You're driving here and there and
No.
okay, so you're not driving around a lot anymore?
I mean, I'm doing some consulting, but
Okay.
I'm part of the business model change. I sold all that stuff.
Okay, all right. So one of the things that was fascinating to me, how many of you have not heard of Periscope? Okay, so Periscope is an app that streams. I could be shooting this on Periscope right now, and people will watch it because people are a little crazy.
We'll watch anything.
There's a guy that put a turnip on a table and just Periscoped it. With no other content, and he had all these watchers. It was a really interesting. Yeah. So
I fell asleep, man. I'm Rip Van Winkle. I don't understand that.
it's the new age.
No, it's
weird.
Periscope, man. No, I was at my neighbor's house. It's a turnip.
Right. This is an onion.
I was at my neighbor's house and we were watching, and they showed me this ad. These younger girls, and I was like, all right. I don't get it. It was less of I just don't get it.
Yeah, I mean,
That I don't get it.
I tell people this all the time. There's a little part of me that dies every time I use a hashtag. I have to because it's my business.
Yeah.
But it's like, I
don't get Twitter.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Facebook,
It's dead anyway.
Twitter's dying.
Oh my gosh. It's just this volume of content.
I
all
don't
the
know.
time.
What's it bring to you? I don't know.
What?
That's
Listening.
how does it improve your life? I don't understand it. You're listening to other people jabbering.
Well,
What they're interested in. I don't get it.
we get into a little bit of social media strategy,
Okay, no,
so we'll talk about that in a second.
I don't
So-
know. I probably shouldn't understand this.
It's okay. No, it's okay.
Did you understand your trouble?
Yeah. I'm gonna join.
So blogging is also great for presentation and demonstration. So really, like I talked about, what are your 5 points about your product? So each point that underpins your presentation, you can blog about that. Okay? So you can have your presentation process. I think this might be a fit for you. That's your testimonial level. Here's what it does for you and why I think it's a connection to that. Here's a way to solve your problem. That's a blog post, or a dozen blog posts, or a
I mean, you can
series
create
of
blogs without somebody making a recommendation or whatever.
Sure, you can create a blog about it.
You just start writing them and it starts generating that.
Yeah, yeah. You need to be minimum 500 words, and Google really wants you to be over 7. And they really like it if you're
What's
over
the
1,000.
frequency of blogging? As much as you want to do, blog away.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want, but don't blog 12 posts 1 week and nothing for 12 weeks.
So
Better to do 1
consistency.
week. Yep. That's why I say consistent, intentional, and granular. You want those 3 aspects to your blogging. And then demonstration, people buy on emotion, they justify with logic. And there's, of course, a sliding scale. The closer you get to a commercial sale, the less emotion there is people generally don't buy with their money. They buy with somebody else's money, so they're solving a different set of problems. But they are still buying something from you. It's just not what's on paper, generally speaking. But people buy with emotion, they justify with logic. B2C sale, or even a lot of B2B sales, they're buying with emotion, justified with logic. The emotion happens in the presentation. This is how it's going to solve your problem. This is the problem that it solves for you. Demonstration is in a granular way how, nuts and bolts way how. That's where you verify, I've been in business 27 years. These are all my customer lists. This is how happy they are with me. I solved the same problem for many other people. This is how I did it. This makes me feel good. This is my security blanket. Yeah, that pipe might be the thing I need, but are you the one to do it, right? That makes me feel good. I'm secure now. That's what demonstration is. Demonstration makes me feel secure by putting all this logic in there for me, okay? Blogging is really great for that. Social media. Social media is a very interesting animal. It can be very effective for you, or it can be the biggest time suck in your business that produces nothing. So, generally speaking, I would say social media is the number one thing you should farm out in your business. You should hire out people to do it. And here's why. Your learning curve that you're going to have to go through, your school, is every second that you spend with that is wasted time, in my opinion. Next, the kind of posting you need to do, the vast majority of it you shouldn't be doing. So it's blogging, it's digging out industry information. And people who do social media a lot, they understand how to do this quickly. They also understand how to use syndicating images. That is going to take you some time to learn. And again, would you pay something? So this is the kind of the model that I always apply to it. You need to look at yourself as worth $200 an hour, okay? And then ask yourself this: would you pay everything you're doing, everything you do every day in your business? Would you pay somebody $200 an hour to do that? Yeah.
Attention light bulbs.
Yeah, exactly. Now, of course, especially when you're starting out, some of that stuff you have to do, but at least understand that as soon as I can, I'm getting this off my plate because I'm not going to keep doing this. It's not worth the time. I would not pay somebody to do this. Because what that'll do for you is it just kind of begins to shade down and carve down everything except your function in the business. And the beauty of it is it's really like a wood carving. I can't remember the sculptor. I think it was Michelangelo, but I don't know. But they asked how he made this beautiful elephant out of this chunk of marble. He said, it's easy. I just remove everything that doesn't look like an elephant. And that's really your function in the business is this $200 an hour compensation. Because as you pare off everything that is not worth $200 an hour for you to pay, then all that's left is your function, right? So it's a really good way to mentally get all that stuff off. And if you're not using Trello, it's outstanding for this. It's outstanding for any kind of project management or planning or anything. It's just incredible. You can ask Trello. If you send me an email on it, I'll get you connected with it or whatever. It's really effective. So social media is the springboard to drive people back to your blog, which drives people back to your core value proposition. Now, this is why I told you before you start any of this stuff, you have to understand your core value proposition. Because if you don't, then everything below that is kind of wasted. All the effort you put into all your content production is kind of wasted. If you don't understand your core value proposition, then the core value propositions of each one of your 3 main products or services. Okay? Each one of those is going to have its own value proposition. And you have to have these cold. They have to be, anybody should be able to walk up and ask you, what's this? And your value proposition pops out. This is where you spend the most of your work. Because once you have this understood, it's much easier to flow out into content. So this is kind of what this looks like. If you, you understand the difference between strategy and tactics. Strategy is we're going to go to that hill over there. Tactics are how we're going to get there. So with a good strategy, you can have bad tactics and still get to where you're trying to go. But if you're going to the wrong hill, the best tactics in the world are wasted. So that's the way to think about this. Because if you're not on the right value proposition, or your value proposition is not clear, I'll give you a great example. I was working with a prospect a while back, and they were in the medical services business. I'm not going to tell you what part, because I want you to deduce it from this value proposition. Their value proposition was equitable healthcare. What do you think that's about?
Giving off their,
Anybody else? Insurance?
I would say maybe healthcare savings or something.
Okay. They were medical billing. No connection at all. It's wasted. It's wasted. So every page of the website has that nice heading up there. They spend a lot of money on their logo. They're going to produce content. They're going to talk to customers. They're going to do sales. They're going to do SEO. And it's not that it's wasted. It's just that you don't have any traction. There's nothing to grab onto with that. So this is why it matters. What do you do?
What do they call it?
What?
What do they call it?
Equitable healthcare.
That was the name of the business.
No, that was the value proposition. That's the core, the tagline.
Oh, wow.
Your core value
And why would
proposition.
people equally for the money?
Exactly. I don't know. Yeah. So again, let's back up to the previous two slides. Social media is where you're essentially spreading seeds. Dandelion's a great example. There's a lot of other plants that are really fascinating to think about how they work. Because what they actually do, bluebonnets do this. Bluebonnet seed pods actually explode. If you've ever gotten to see it, it's really kind of a miracle thing that's what's happening. Because one day you're out there and like several of them, and they blow the seeds out and chuck them like 15 feet. And that's a plant propagate. That's the way you think about social media, like a dandelion seed. You're not really clear about where they're going to land, but what you can do is refine your follower list in social media so that you're following people that are relevant and you're more likely to get followbacks that are relevant. So for me, one of my strategies, speaking of real estate, is for any time I take on a client, unless they're highly specialized, they won't be relevant to them. The first thing I do is I follow every real estate agent that I can find in the demo area. Then I follow every restaurant in the demo area. Then I try to find every civic organization in that area. And then I start from there and start building more people. Because real estate agents know everybody. So they're reposting stuff if they're active. Most of them aren't. I don't understand why real estate agents don't use Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Especially Twitter and Instagram. Because the story is so clear. When you post a house on there, it's either for sale or it's sold. That's the story. This guy's always selling houses. He's also talking about the community and stuff like that, but every other day, there's a real estate agent up here in town. She has sold, I guarantee you, she's sold 20, 30 houses in the time that I've seen her just off of Facebook posts. Because she talks about how excited she is about this new property. Then she'll show herself talking to people, the buyers, and then she'll show it's a close. So she's telling the story of the process, right? You can always do that no matter what industry you're in. You could do it by hashtagging client lunch at whatever. You could do it today. Client lunch, you could meet a client. Had a great lunch with a client today. We talked about this particular part. It was a very interesting conversation because ABCDE. That's a blog post, but then you post on social media about it, okay? So social media is a springboard to drive people back to your blog, which drives people back to your core value proposition. So I want to back up a little bit and do a content overview so that you can kind of see the path. This is the model you can use for all content that you ever produce. You can, if you're ever questioning anything about your content or what to do next, you can always use this as a model. So you start with your core value proposition. Then you go to 3 main services and products. You build pages for each of those. It's very important. Blog posts about each. You can easily plan 5 blog posts about each one of your core products or services. Okay, that's 15 blog posts. You can then do sales process for each one. So each, like I said before, each one of your core products or services has its own sales process. Okay? So your overall, you've got a sales process, but you identify one thing that you do specifically, one of your core products or services. That's going to have its own sales process. So, like, let's say one of the things I do is SEO. So my SEO page is going to have its own sales process. Each one of those bullet points in the sales process, you can blog about that. I can blog about the grading process of SEO. One of the big, I talk about this all the time with SEO. SEO, which probably has the slimiest people in it, right next to used car sales, but it's probably worse because you can get away with more in SEO than you can in used car now. And so I talk about that a lot because people always come to me saying, I got burned on this and this. I spent $40,000 with this company and they didn't do anything for me. So those kind of stories are really common and they're easy to blog about. So horror stories in your vertical are easy to blog about because everybody's afraid of that. You're not manipulating. I want to make that clear. People really resist the sales process because they feel that it's manipulative. But there's a difference between this is what you should be afraid of and fear it, and you should buy from me because you're afraid of this. That's manipulation. Telling a story that people are already talking about is not manipulation. You're agreeing with the person. And what I always do to make sure, if I'm ever curious if I'm on the line of manipulating or not, I'll take myself out of the equation and say, look, don't even buy from me. Here's what you should do. Buy from somebody, don't buy from me. Buy from somebody because of these reasons. And that puts me in the right mental place. So if you're ever curious about whether or not you're on that line, you can use that model. So you can blog about any of your service or products, the pages themselves, any of the points of the sales process, and then social media posts about each one of these things, both the content pages themselves and the blog posts. Okay? The blog posts are going to be more effective for social media, but occasionally go back up to your sales pages. Now, you really should have landing pages. And landing pages are dedicated pages that are there solely for the purpose for somebody to do something. They can either do that thing or they can leave the page. Now, you don't want to give them a lot of other places to go, like other places on your website, like your standard navigation should be present.
Landing pages as in call to action.
Let me show you one of mine. Because we're running down on time, it'll be easier just to show you than it will be to, let's see, one of the weird things about this computer is it always resets to the smallest font they have.
If you command plus button, it'll increase the text size.
Yeah, but it does that for the page, but not the tabs. The tabs shrink way down, and the tabs won't grow.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
All right, what are you doing here? Don't yawn.
Sorry.
Okay, here we go.
It's not the content.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Your voice
Too late.
is keeping your mouth open. You stop talking and
Right. He was so mesmerizing. Okay, so this is a standard page. We'll go back to the home page. I'll just show you a standard page and the difference between this and a blogging page. So you can see this. This has all my navigation up top, right? Is anybody not seeing this?
Is that like your homepage?
Yep, that's the home page of my site. So this is all the navigation and everything, right? It's got all this nice stuff up here. It's got the nice social buttons up here. Get a free report over here. All these nice people here and testimonials over here and helpful links and social count and all this stuff. So, but when I go to my landing page, there's no navigation up top. There's no social buttons. I've got my value proposition. My pitch is here. Here's the support for it. It's fast. It's easily understandable. Pricing, bonuses. That's the landing page. Now, the reason you don't want all that other stuff there is because you give people the opportunity to leave the page. Okay, so if you have a dynamic Facebook integration so that it's showing like active content, it'll show on their Facebook page. I mean, it'll show their Facebook behavior. So if they've got notifications or anything like that, it can pop on that. They're gone. And once they go to Facebook, they're in the black hole. They'll never come back because they're going to see their aunt's kittens or their aunt's kids in the Christmas play, or their kids posted something from high school and blah blah blah. You're never getting them back. So this is why when you embed a YouTube video, you don't want to have suggested videos at the end of it. You have to defeat that. So unclick that option when you embed a video, because people have all these options to go back out to YouTube. And again, once they go out, they're not coming back, because all those cat videos on YouTube, you're not competing with that. Yes. So we're coming down to the end of time, not the end of all time, but for today.
Do it all the time.
Yes. So any questions? Yeah. So I want to make sure we get to any questions. Any questions?
I have a question.
Hit
And
me.
I was actually asking Leslie this earlier. So you said that obviously social media is the first thing that the number one thing you recommend farming out for your business.
Yeah.
As far as blogging, is that something? So
That'll probably
blogging.
be the next thing.
So first, so you want to farm out blogging, but you want to.
Unless you're a good writer and you can sit down and pound it out, then yes, farm it out, because it's so painful if you're not a good writer, and if you're not a good writer, all the time you spend on it's going to be bad.
Right.
It's like I would never build a car,
Right.
right? I want to go buy a car from somebody that already built it, that knows what they're doing.
So question, more specifically, what I was asking Leslie earlier is that it's the space that my client works in is basically the what developers, mobile apps developers, stuff like that. Just kind of catch you guys up. So my thought is I've actually met some developers who have their own blogs already, and so I was talking with Leslie about the possibility of collaborating actually with those people who are already writing blogs,
Sure.
and seeing if I can in some way kind of syndicate them on our website, saying, look, my client and her partner are technical discovery experts, so they're constantly working with people who are looking to fill positions or work on projects.
Yeah.
And we're basically branding them as the experts that you go to if you need assistance. So what we'd like is to give you guys an opportunity to get your work in front of people who could potentially be, offering you work, or your friends work, kind of.
So there's a couple of things about that. The first thing is you can't copy blog over, because you'll get duplicate content, and unless you want to just de-index all that and not work for rankings. You don't want that to work for you on rankings, but you're wasting a golden opportunity there if you do that. But if you don't want to mess with writing new blog posts, then you can do that. Just say, hey Bob, I want to copy a blog post over here, but Bob's going to understand, if he knows anything about the web at all, that he's losing value, because any of the links in there, it's not going to matter because it's not getting indexed. Okay, so
there's
the
no
other,
way of siphoning them over.
not straight. You can. You're gonna get you're gonna have to either de-index it, or you're gonna get in trouble with duplicate content. So the best way to do it is to do an interview with them. And what you talked about before is a good way to do it. A phone interview or an email interview is even better,
Okay.
because they can answer at any time. And guess what? When they email it to you, it's written.
Yeah.
Then you copy and paste it.
Yeah.
So, probably, what I think we'd be talking about is, for example, our board of realtors
Uh-huh.
has a industry-specific blog.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And they encourage us to use or reuse that content.
Yeah.
So if I copy and paste that content, stick it on my blog,
Uh-huh.
what's happening? Is it defeating the purpose
So-
of my blog, or is
For purposes of Google ranking it, yes. Unless they are not indexing their blog. If they're not, it's a real easy way to check for indexing is just copy and paste about 100 words, and then put that in quotation marks in Google and search it. If it comes up, they're indexing it, and then you cannot.
if it comes up after
I'll show you exactly.
No, I follow what you're saying.
It's not that it's bad. It's just if you use
100
it.
words in there,
Uh-huh.
put it in quotes, put it in the search bar,
Yeah.
and see if it comes up.
Right.
And if it comes up, it's going to come up with them first, more than likely.
It's not that. The point of this is that it is being indexed.
Okay. So if it
So-
comes up at all.
Right. That means you can't just copy it over.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So the way to do that is either quote part of it,
Change words.
but yeah, that's harder than if you're not used to doing it.
Right.
It's harder than writing your blog post. But an easy way to do that is just 5 points. take the blog post and what is this about? What's 5 things about this? And then just write it out yourself. Better is to do industry news. So, zip code 78704 had ABC happen in the last quarter, and ABOR says this is going to be the thing. I mean, just a little explanatory paragraph in that, and you're already to 100 words. So 5 thoughts about that. Well, historically, 78704 has done this, but you know that it's doing this right now. The whole condo towers around Broken Spoke is one of the hottest topics in Austin. I hear about it constantly because I'm at the Broken Spoke all the time.
Yeah.
And there's funny in there because we kind of keep track of all the myths going around about every other month there's something that comes like, yeah, they're closing. They're going to move it down to South Manchac or something like that. Anyway, so was there another question?
What was step 5?
Step 5 is closing. Yeah.
Okay.
And closing, the reason I don't put a lot of energy into closing, because again, closing is the most natural thing to happen if you've done your work. If you've ever been doing any sales training, you know that there's all these closes that people will try to work you through, but that's called hard closing. And the problem with it is, if you're talking to somebody that you have to hard close, either you're in a commodity business and there's a lot of other people just like you and you're not differentiated, you have not done your work on your value proposition, so you're not separating yourself as solving a big problem. That's another one. You're not solving a big problem. You're solving small problems. I had a guy sitting here and asked me one time, well, I can't get people to buy. I said, well, what do you do? He said, I'm in promotional products. I said, well, there you go. So promotional products might be the most commoditized business in the world. Or you just have not been clear enough about how big your problem is that you solve. And your sales process sucks. One of those 4 things is happening if you cannot get people to buy when you're getting down there. If you're in a services business like we are, if you're not getting people to buy, the most likelihood is you set the conversation wrong. You have not set the conversation properly. So there's a couple of techniques. The one close that I do use a lot is, but I don't really use it as a close. I use it as a conversation setter, which is the takeaway close. I don't know if you're the right fit for what I'm doing. Now all of a sudden the conversation's flipped. Instead of me begging for your business, I'm trying to see if I even want to take your business. Yeah, write the check, but set it over there. Let's talk first. It's a different conversation. And once you're in that position, you're the trusted expert. You've told me, hey, you're not going to take my money if you're, what? Nobody says that. Everybody's like a vacuum cleaner. Once money's out, yeah, you're the right client. You have money, So, that's real common in the services businesses, is that the conversation is set wrong. If you have a physical product, it's a little different because people self-identify, yeah, I want that physical product, and the conversation is already set properly. So, closing is, you shouldn't be putting effort into closing. That's why there's nothing in there.
Where does the proposal fall for these that have to put out big formal proposals with all their tech specs and their,
Who are they presenting? Who are they proposing to?
well, for example, government.
Oh, yeah, that's
Or for SunPower, and they have to go put together gazillion page proposals for governments to buy out.
Do they have RFPs? Are they responding to RFP? Yeah. So that's a completely different thing. And again, that's like the furthest end of the scale of not shopping with your own money, so your own ego's not involved. You're solving other problems then, because people are looking at the budgets they have to live in, the timing of their budgets, the fiscal year, and all that other stuff.
So this cycle is leading up to being invited to send a proposal, basically.
Yeah.
In that case.
What I have not worked a lot with government on purpose. Yeah. But what I would do is take as many of those buyers to lunch as you can and just learn about what do they look for. Just go, look, I know nothing. Teach me. I'll buy you lunch. Just tell me. Of course, you got issues there. I'm not telling you to disobey the law. I'm saying do what you can to have an interview with them and go, just tell me what you're looking for. I want to make your life easier. I want to make my client's life easier. Now this might be a way to use takeaway close. I don't even know if my client's a fit for you guys. But what I want to do is learn about what your buying process is like and how I could solve the majority of your problems before we ever get to the door.
Right.
Because that's what they're looking at.
Right.
A
And
mid-level
that's
buyer.
what I'm talking about, that gap right there.
Yeah.
Before the proposal, but after they have found out about the product and said, you're one of three companies or
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
that we're looking at,
Yeah.
that gap
Yeah.
is.
We probably have to have a longer conversation about that because I want to get into what's the history. Tell me about what's happened in the past. Yeah, that's interesting. I think that commercial and government buying they're very fascinating buying processes. Any other final questions? We need to go ahead and shut down. We can talk some more, but obviously give everybody room to leave if they need to. I appreciate you guys. I enjoyed it very much. And if you got any other questions about me, come out and order lunch.
Yeah, so could you, you're talking
No, I'm not very good at that. At least not making that like, you're the sales process. It's kind of gross. Everybody's like, no, I'm not looking for anymore.
Yeah. So, any of you guys who are salespeople, if you're interested in me buying you lunch to talk about what you need from content creators, then please let me know. I need to have a lot of those conversations, I think.
I'm always looking for good content people. Do you have content packages?
That's what I'm working on developing, is specifically to serve that sales enablement niche. And I do blogging, but so far I haven't set up a package with you. I just go.
That, by the way, that's not live.
I'm wondering how you can afford to do it for that price.
That was a time sensitive deal, so it's.
Landing page?
No, the blogging package, because I don't know if you saw the pricing, but it was like 10 blog posts for only $500. Yeah, that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, absolutely.
You do this on an ongoing.
I do, every month. Did you join the meetup?
I do.
Okay, great. Yeah, you'll get all the announcements and everything. Yeah, we do a third Wednesday.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
good. I want to talk to you more. Do you have a card? Sure. One of the things that I
work with me too.
All right.
I'll call later.
Yeah, man.
Because I gotta revisit all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. On websites, like building a website,
Uh-huh.
if I've got time, is that something that needs to be outsourced?
Yes.
You don't want to build your own website.
Unless you've done it.
We'll see you next month.
If you don't know code, if you don't understand what you're used for your website and the SEO ins and outs, and what you'll end up doing is setting up a website to have it as a
yeah.
The best
I
thing to
mean,
do
like Bluehost, all this other stuff they advertise.
Yeah.
they do WordPress, so WordPress will get you close. Yeah, absolutely. So much. What I want to get with y'all maybe is soon, just on a phone call or lunch, is talk about Instagram, using Instagram with realtors. Because I'm setting up some.
Yeah, thanks for talking.
Cool.
Take care. See you. Merry Christmas.
So, Bluehost, just WordPress out of the box is pretty good. There's a lot of stuff you need to know to install. If you're.
Well, I bought a package from Bluehost last year.
To do what, how much?
It was like $500 or
To
$600.
set up a website?
No, it was, I'll have to look at it. Matter of fact, I forgot about it and I called him this morning. I was trying to figure out how to deal with some of the stuff and seeing how much I had to pay. Because I've had nothing but nightmares with web development. I mean, that's why I got to the point. I was like, you know what? I'm going to take some time off this year. Maybe I'll take 2 months and just do it myself. I'm like, I mean, not only wasting my time, they've not responded. You know, I'm hunting a black dog in the dark, man. I'm tired of it. You know, that's why I was just going to buckle down. Now I've done websites, but we're talking back in the '90s. You know, doesn't matter what I'm telling you, I'm old school. I mean, I can't wrap my brain around a lot of the way that the human condition has changed. So, you know what I mean? I just can't. I mean, I can learn, but I mean, and I need to.
We know everybody's war story for website.
Well, that's why I mean, should I just get Bluehost to do it? To develop
I
the
don't
page?
know.
I think they have the hardest time.
Because.
No, I mean, I forgot what I got. I might have been $700.
Yeah, finding content.
They don't charge that much for building the website.
Can write,
Hosting, no, it was
communicate
for 5 years. It
knowledge
was like an
through
incredible
industries,
deal.
and so-
And I mean, I read all the reviews and all this different crap.
Bluehost is a good company. I've not looked at.
But I mean, how important is that intricacy of building a website interacts with what we're talking about, getting these things clicking? You know what I'm saying? How difficult, I mean, just the basic outline and format, the way it's set up. I mean, like structured, you know, templated.
Probably just have to have one conversation about that. I need to see what they sent you And then, because there's two ways we can help you. We can do the setup for you. Our setup's at $1,500, but it's full. It'll be prepped SEO wise. Any content you give us will be optimized. Your SEO setup will be done. All your
You mean-
plugins will be
You mean for the actual
WordPress site. Yeah.
web page?
No, the whole site.
Okay.
So like any content you have, we can incorporate all that and make it all work. It's not gonna be an e-commerce site.
Yeah, no, I need the e-commerce.
Yeah, but that's gonna be, I probably wouldn't go with a $500 or $700 solution.
Well, I mean, I don't know, I can't remember how much it was. I mean, there's add-ons and all this other stuff. That's why I was,
E-commerce is a big deal, and the cart is one of the biggest. So we
We'll
just
just
need to,
need the
yeah,
LC.
we'll get together.
yeah.
Cool. Go through everything.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, very nice to meet you. Thanks so much.
Hey, nice meeting you.
I'll give him a call.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm wanting to do a few things.
No,
Yeah, what's
that's
that?
okay. I'm just trying to figure out a way to like make it so it's killing two birds with one stone. Since they're already they already have copies, so I can just take their actual
Right.
Because I'm trying to figure out.
But like you said, I kind of
Yeah, I could
feel
like
like there was a plan up properly, like saying which I wish there was.
Hey, why not?
Your side is security.
I don't know if I believe 80%. I don't know what's the key card that.
Which office is there?
What's it? Which office? What's office?
Oh, it's the gym.
I doesn't talk. Oh, I hear.
And what they say?
Right, yeah.
He said,
See,
hey, I'm
so
gonna switch out all your
challenge
laptops.
that
for you.
is,
I'm talking to the city.
that it has to be between, it has to be reflective words to actually, that's why.
We should probably not do it.
Right.
City
So I
also,
think we just have to, we just have to hire
to reimburse
a
the
one,
company.
like a moderator first. But the tricky thing is that you have to for another, you know, SEO is a pain in the ass.
Oh, right on.
Um,
Right on.
even